Hi, and welcome to this episode of Bill and Kipp's Excellent Bible Adventure. My name's Kipp McClurg, and this is Bill Brunson, and we serve together at Vestavia Hills United Methodist Church as pastors here. We're so grateful that you have joined us, and we're all the way to the 11th chapter of John and are looking at the story of Lazarus. Lazarus was a good friend of Jesus, and Lazarus had two sisters, Mary and Martha, and often would stay there. And you'll notice that there is a paper copy of a calendar as our prop today. Again, we borrowed this from somebody. Did not actually cost us money. Budget looking good.
We have to return it before they find out that we borrowed it.
They don't actually know that we borrowed it.
Got to move quick.
Yes. So please don't tell. But anyway, our story tells the calendar sort of relates to it because Jesus was out. He was with his disciples and they were doing ministry and gets this message that his dear friend Lazarus is sick, really to the point of death.
Yeah.
Could you please come and be with us? I mean, I think any of us in that situation would drop everything and go. But
right.
Jesus looks at the calendar and goes, we're going to stay here a couple more days.
Yeah.
And we'll get there and it'll all be okay. And so they stay, and ultimately Lazarus dies. And his sisters, they were looking at their calendar going, Jesus, we sent for you. If you hadn't wasted those days, we'd be in a lot better shape.
Right.
And so Jesus eventually does get on the road, and he does go and make his way to Bethany, and but not before the disciples. Well, the disciples didn't really want him to go to Bethany.
No, there were, we've been talking about the fact that opposition's been growing. I mean, we can't even keep track of how many times they have said, well, let's arrest him. Well, let's stone him.
I mean, the pattern from the last 4 chapters have been Jesus does something amazing, and the Jewish leaders try to figure out what to do about it and undo what he did.
Right. And so they're the disciples are a bit concerned because Bethany, Jesus was just in Jericho. So he was just in the southern part of Israel. And he's probably making his way back up, stopping in villages, moving along the way when the word reaches him that Lazarus is sick. And he delays his travel. He doesn't move on. But where Mary and Martha and Lazarus live is in the village of Bethany, which if you are in Jerusalem, looking across the Kidron Valley and up the Mount of Olives, you just go over the crest of the Mount of Olives, and there's Bethany. I mean, Bethany is not far from Jerusalem. It is only a matter of a couple of miles away from Jerusalem. And so you are getting into the belly of the beast if you go back from the safety of somewhere on the road to a known friend's house.
Yeah. Who is well known to a lot of these people who don't like Jesus.
That's right. And you're going there to Bethany. And so the disciples are like, Rabbi, we don't really think you need to go there. They're wanting to stone you. I mean, it's just not good. And of course, Jesus says, hey, aren't there enough hours in the day? Whoever walks by the day doesn't really stumble because, they have the light of the world. And so he is trying to get them to understand that he's got to go. And what's really amazing is this is one of those moments where we hear from a disciple, not just the group saying, let's not go, but we hear from one disciple, we hear from Thomas,
who doesn't really talk a lot.
He doesn't talk a lot, but he pops up this time and says, well, if he's going, I'm going, we all are going. If he's going to go to Bethany near Jerusalem and is going to risk dying, we're all going to go with him and we'll die with him.
Yeah, we'll just go and die.
I mean, we normally think of Thomas as doubting Thomas because he's going to pop up again in a little while where he hasn't seen the resurrected Jesus, and so he wants to see the proof of the resurrection before he believes. But right here, we're not really seeing doubting Thomas. We're seeing courageous Thomas. We're seeing Thomas with a backbone and with a boldness that we're not quite used to. Because here Thomas is saying, if he's going to go, he's not going alone.
Or I read it a little bit differently and say, is that sarcasm going, well, I guess we'll go die with him. So
I guess that's how you read old Thomas.
I'm not sure which one it is with it. But anyway, but he says, let's go. And so they all get in the minivan, I guess. And take off.
They head to Bethany because Lazarus is dead.
Yeah. And so the word has reached and they show up. Mary and Martha, I mean, it's just this tragic moment. They come out and again, they pull out the calendar and go, Jesus, why did you delay so long?
Because when he finally gets there, he waits 2 days. And when he finally gets there, Lazarus has been in the tomb 4 days.
Right.
I mean,
and
it's nearly a full week later when he arrives.
So they're astounded that their friend didn't come. And then Jesus says, basically, I delayed for a reason. This is going to be a special moment. And, I'm going to raise him from the dead. And the response was, well, at the resurrection, yeah. I mean, we believe in that.
Yeah,
but
at the end of time kind of thing, yeah.
But he's dead right now. And then Jesus says, no, I am the resurrection and life.
Another I am
statement.
I am Yahweh, the resurrection and life. I am the resurrection and the life.
It says, it's recorded that there are a number of, it says, Jews. So we imagine those are Jewish authorities who are friends with Lazarus. And they're there. And here, yet again, another statement of Jesus connecting himself to God as a very divine relationship. And so...
right, but it says that they're mourners from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So and it almost brings to mind the idea of a professional mourner. Someone who goes and does this. My grandmother could have been a professional mourner. I will never know anyone in my life probably who loved a good funeral more than that woman did. She'd go early and she'd stay late. It didn't matter if she was related to them or not. She wept louder than anyone and stayed longer than anyone. I always thought she helped fill in the hole. But these are the kind of people that are there. They're mourning with Mary and Martha, mourning over this loss. And now they're hearing Jesus blaspheme is what they're thinking. They're hearing heresy out of Jesus' mouth. The one that didn't come to help is now going, I am the resurrection and the life. I mean...
And then the other part of the crowd is, we had a saying in our family when we had small children who wore diapers. Mm-hmm. If we knew that one of them had a soiled diaper and they were coming toward the other parent and we didn't feel like changing it, we'd say, Lazarus is coming your way, to try to hand that baton off, right, so that we didn't have to change the diaper. Because after 4 days, the body's going to be stinking.
Right.
And so the rest of the crowd is going, how's it going to resurrect? I mean, we've got decaying flesh here.
Right. Well, in the Jewish belief, the spirit was absolutely gone. On the third day, the spirit fully left the body is their mindset, because you have to take into account their understanding of medicine. And someone might fall into a coma and come out of a coma. Mm-hmm. Someone might seem dead and then come back to life, kind of thing. But after about on the third day, when you cross the third day, it's over. Not coming back if you hit the third day. They're on day 4. So he is not just dead. He's dead. And at dead, he stinketh.
Yes.
The old KJV.
Surely he stinketh.
Surely he stinketh. And I mean, it's that powerful moment of, again, Jesus wanting to do something up here. And these people are thinking practically.
Yeah.
Standing out in the middle of the cemetery with a body that's been in the ground for 4 days. And Jesus is right in front of that tomb. And you don't know what he's about to do.
But he stands there and he says, Lazarus, come forth. And, before that, though, it is the shortest verse in the Bible.
Yes.
it says that Jesus Jesus wept, and that was the one. Always at Vacation Bible School, that was my first one because that
Absolutely.
was easy points. But if you had to memorize them, but it does show clearly the strong relationship and the emotional side and the human side of Jesus. And often in church history, there have been questions theologically about the divinity of Jesus versus the humanity of Jesus and whether he was fully human. And I think part of that picture is this was a person who had a full set of human emotion,
Yeah.
who lost a friend is dead. Even though he knows he's going to resurrect, he's looking at the whole scene
Right.
of a grieving family.
Yeah, I mean, he's seeing the hurt of Mary and Martha. He's seeing the hurt of the community. He knows fully that death it's overwhelming. It hits on every aspect of your senses. It rattles you from top to bottom. It does all of that, and he's standing there knowing the impact of death. And he weeps, and I like that all translations will say Jesus wept. It's never Jesus cried. It's never and Jesus got a little misty.
Yeah.
He got a little verklempt in that moment. It's Jesus wept. And, so much so that the people said, "Wow, he really did like this guy." They were close. I mean, the crowd feels the emotion and whatever angst they had over him, saying things like, the sisters could be right. I mean, after all, he opened the eyes of that blind guy.
Yeah, it comes up again. This is the third time.
Yeah, third time
that they're going, what do we do with the blind?
He opened the eyes of the blind guy, and yet, he didn't come here. And they put all that aside when they see the genuine emotion of Jesus weeping. And then he prays that prayer that I've always found. While you always see Thomas approached to Lazarus, coming to help Lazarus, you always approach it from the angle of, well, I guess we'll go die. And I approach it from the courageous. Some people hear the prayer of Jesus as being this grand moment of holiness at the tomb. And I always see it as just this inside conversation between Jesus and his Father that shows a depth of relationship there where Jesus says, I know that you always hear me. I'm just saying this so that they're going to believe that you sent me. It's this conversation that he seems to be having with him. And then you can almost picture him getting a little bit louder. And after he's prayed and they've seen him praying, then he gets a little louder and goes, Lazarus, come out. And he does.
And they're, the grave clothes are wrapped around him, and they have to get all that off and unbandage him, and so it's an interesting thing because the church, the Jewish leaders don't know now what to do with Jesus, really, nor Lazarus, because you've got this resurrected person. Mm-hmm. The church goes on not knowing what's going to happen to Lazarus. He's been resurrected. Does that mean he lives forever?
Right.
And so
that was an early controversy.
We start seeing that sort of, even the last part of the last chapter, I guess, of John. What about that person? Mm-hmm. Is that John? Some have said it could be Lazarus.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with this resurrected person?
Well, you also have the moment where that the high priest begin to plot to kill Lazarus.
Yeah, they're like,
because
this is a problem.
Yeah, this is bad PR for us if Lazarus stays around.
Yeah.
So we might just want to go kill him too, and we'll deal with Jesus, and we'll take out Lazarus.
That's right. Nobody will remember that incident.
That's an awkward moment, and all of this. I mean, Jesus is doing something amazingly powerful, amazingly hope-filled, raising Lazarus from the dead. And some of that crowd head straight back to Jerusalem.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they run down that winding road down the Mount of Olives.
Last third of the chapter, they're back trying to plot what
They
to do.
go to the Pharisees and say, y'all ain't going to believe this. We were over in Bethany, and they tell the story, and everyone then is trying to figure out, again, what are we going to do with Jesus? And we have a character that pops really into the scene fully this time in this chapter. We get really introduced to Caiaphas, whose actual full name was Joseph ben Caiaphas, and he went by Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. And Caiaphas actually was one of the longest tenured high priest in this period of the ADs until in common time before the destruction of the temple. He actually was the high priest for around 18 years, and so which was very long, considering when Herod the Great took over in around 35 BC. In that period of time when Herod the Great takes over, Herod the Great did away with the high priest dynasties. Mm-hmm. And so in the past, you had high priests for 30 years and 40 years, and a short-term high priest was just not heard of. And well, at one point, most of the high priests only served for 1 year or 2 years. At one point, Herod actually appointed his brother-in-law, who was 17 at the time, to be the high priest.
Well, he did a job,
right?
know?
And Caiaphas was the son-in-law of Annas, which was Seth ben Annas. And Annas actually ends up with Caiaphas as a high priest, and he ends up with 5 of his sons serving as high priest along the way. And so, very powerful family. But this is the first time that you see the plot starting to form after Lazarus is brought back from the dead, because you see Caiaphas saying, if he's the Christ, if this is real, if he's the one, then Rome is not going to allow this. Because remember, they were expecting a Messiah who would raise a rebellion.
Right.
Rome's not going to allow this. Rome's going to take away our temple. They're going to take away our people. It's going to be awful. It's better that one die than us to lose everything. And the plot starts to form that it's better for Jesus to die, which means Caiaphas may be one of the first of the religious leaders to maybe possibly accept that Jesus might be the Messiah.
Yeah.
He's not going to say it fully, but he seems to put credit to it that if he does what we think Messiah is supposed to do, which wasn't a correct assumption of what Messiah was supposed to do, but if he does it, Rome's coming in with full power, we lose everything.
Yet,
so it's better for him to die than us.
Someone once said that if there was anybody who believed the potential that Jesus, the baby Jesus, was the Messiah, it was Herod. Mm-hmm. Because he acted in such a way that he was going to eliminate any threat possible.
Right.
And you're seeing that in Caiaphas.
Right.
This could be it, but that's a threat.
That's a
threat.
threat.
We've got to deal with that.
It's a huge threat. It was a huge threat to Herod that suddenly this baby is born king of the Jews. When Herod was king of the Jews, but only because the Roman Senate had named him king of the Jews after he had sided with Octavian, who becomes Caesar Augustus, and he had sided with him in the War of Rebellion in the Roman Empire, and sort of that overturn of power after Julius Caesar. And historically, he is an Edomite. He's not Jewish. He's married his second wife. He takes for his second wife, he takes a Jewish wife, Mariamne, and so that he can at least have
some
children that would be Jewish and some connection to the people. And so the real king is born. He wants to get rid of that king, And so we end up with all male children under 2 years old being killed in a region. Caiaphas is sitting there, and he's the high priest only because the Herods have made him the high priest. The rulers have made him the high priest. And now this guy might actually be Messiah. And if he's Messiah, then do we even need a high priest? And so there's a lot of threat there too.
And I think, for all of us, there's a moment where we have to recognize if Jesus is Messiah, then there's some threats in our lives.
Yeah.
There are some things that could have to change. There are some pieces that don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for all people who follow Christ, it's a struggle that if I'm truly going to be a disciple, if I'm truly going to follow, then there's a huge risk that I'm either going to have to eliminate Jesus out of my life or I'm going to have to follow his way.
Yeah.
And for all of us, those are some difficult moments.
Those are. But when we accept that Jesus is Messiah, though changes may come, we find that he is the resurrection and the life. And we find that the life we experience in him is better than we ever imagined before.
Absolutely.